Welcome to another episode of B2B Startup Growth. I'm Shaw McHouse, and in this podcast, I aim to share with you wisdom from some of the smartest B2B startup leaders and professionals that I know. We talk about all aspects of marketing, sales, growth hacking, life hacking, and everything in between. In this episode, I had the privilege to interview the superstar VP Marketing of GuardKnox, Jillian Goldberg. We talked about how she got started in marketing and about the GuardKnox product discovery journey and about how GuardKnox utilized micro-segmentation to achieve phenomenal business results while the world was going through a pandemic and they were not able to travel and meet in person their target audience. The term hypersegmentation refers to the practice of marketing where you segment your targeted audiences into very, very specific groups, as granular as a single account, and within that, sometimes as granular as a single persona or a single person even. So this practice is especially effective in very large B2B sales, huge sales sizes that typically take a long time to close and that are super, super valuable. So they're worth this investment. And this approach facilitated results for GuardKnox lately that were significantly exceeding their goals and expectations. So I'll link in the show notes an article that explains how to effectively apply this approach. And without further ado, enjoy this episode. Hi, Jillian. So
Hi.
Good to talk to you.
Good to be
here. We're meeting now actually in August 21. And I'm so excited to be able to interview you today in light of a lot of recent things that are happening in GuardKnox. Really, really great things. And I'm sure some of them you can share with us, some of them not yet, but watch out for the audience, I'm saying. But let's start first by you telling people who don't know what GuardKnox is. Could you explain a little bit, what is GuardKnox? What do you do in terms that most people would understand?
Yes, of course. So GuardKnox is the automotive industry's first cyber tech tier. So that's actually a really new term. We'll actually talk about that, I'm sure, in this podcast of that category creation. But in order to understand what we do, I think it's important to kind of talk about where we come from. So our entire founding team actually comes from the Israeli Air Force, where we developed the cyber defense systems, actually still currently deployed in our fighter jets, our missile defense systems. And we took that technology to the automotive industry. We started in the industry as an automotive cybersecurity company. So preventing your vehicle from being hacked, if you've seen Fast and Furious, you know what I'm talking about. The news talks about it a lot, ransomware, things like this. And we quickly realized, actually, our USP is so much more than just cybersecurity. We see cybersecurity as a built-in, it's not an afterthought. So security as an architecture, it's defense by design. So we actually saw and we said, the way we actually are building these platforms actually enables added connectivity, enables a totally different driving experience. I like to call it the iPhoneization, the smartphoneization, the automotive industry. So what we actually build is we build secured and high performance computing platforms. Our product line actually consists of a comm engine. So as we transition to new electronic architectures in our vehicles, so instead of having 100 to 150 automotive computers, let's reduce that, but add added functionality for software upgrades. So that actually enables the fast routing communication that's kind of pausing this transition. So we'll talk about that paradigm shift. And then we have a services-oriented architecture framework, which enables added application hosting. And this is really what excites me so much about what GuardKnox does, the idea that I can have a customized driving experience in my vehicle. We also, obviously, all of these have cybersecurity built into them. And then we also do offer an aftermarket product, which is kind of just a part of all these core capabilities, but designed for very specific use cases within the aftermarket, ransomware protection, enabling us to have this added information. So really cool things that we're doing. It's a blue ocean, what GuardKnox is working in. So for those of us who don't know the terms red ocean and blue ocean, definitely check out that book. It's an amazing book. But essentially, a red ocean would be a super saturated market, high competition. They say the water is tinted red from the blood of the competition. And a blue ocean doesn't have competition. So it's a totally new market. And as a marketer, it's super exciting to be working in such a new market. It is incredibly technical. So sometimes that is kind of challenging. But I think the challenge is what excites me so much about what I do every day.
Very interesting that you say that you're in a blue ocean. That's a very positive and optimistic way to look at it, because on one hand, when you say blue ocean, you mean, okay, GuardKnox are in this new category. And let me phrase it in words that are maybe simpler for people who are outside of your industry. I'll say you're in the business, in the industry of the new generation of software and hardware infrastructure for cars, for the next generation of cars, for next generation of vehicles that need totally different, totally new software and hardware architecture. So you're in the business of providing that infrastructure, and the software elements and the hardware elements and the computing elements that are needed for that. Now, and that is to allow for vehicles to be all those very, very new things that they can be, essentially computers on wheels. So this, to say that you're in the blue ocean means that you guys are really you've founded this category for sure. But what kind of competition are you still seeing? I'm guessing it's from internal OEMs. The vehicle companies are thinking each that they need to develop this new infrastructure. What are the different ways they're looking to do that?
Yeah, of course. So I think, a lot of these OEMs or automotive manufacturers are actually developing software organizations within their company. So you see this with Cariad from the VW group. You see this, a number of different places, and they've recognized, they know, right? They know that there's this shift going. And so they're developing the software. So we're not in competition of software development. What GuardKnox is doing is we're saying, hey, we see this shift. We know where you're going. We develop a framework for you to develop on top of. Now, the idea is you have a mixed criticality environment. You can actually, it eases the software development. And what we enable them is we say, we give you the freedom to evolve. We know you're evolving.
Can you explain the term mixed criticality to
Yes.
people who are not system engineers?
Sorry, yeah, sometimes I forget. So a mixed criticality environment means you have safety critical applications. So a safety critical application in your vehicle would be like something, working with your braking. A lot of ADAS or autonomous driving capabilities are very safety critical, obviously. And a non-safety critical would be maybe your infotainment system, right? If someone can put a funny picture on your screen. So we want to be able to use Android. So we have Android Automotive, we have Apple CarPlay. These are awesome applications. We want to be able to use them. But we know that Android isn't by definition the most secure operating system. So if I'm being hosted on the same platform, God forbid something would happen to that partition, the safety critical components are not effective. So in this manner, I'm enabling, it's not just cybersecurity, it's safety, right? Our car is the smallest place in which our entire family is gathered. I care about your safety at the end of the day. And so how can we enable all of this innovation, but not at the cost of our safety, our security? And that's really what we can do. And we can enable this really secure environment for our software developers, for our manufacturers to develop on. And so, it's not that we're in competition with them at all. It's explaining and educating to them, we get where you're going. I don't want to compete with you. You're my partner. You're my customer. I want to give you a platform for you to continue to develop. And so really explaining how we can ease that burden and work together with them has been a huge marketing goal of ours, obviously.
Very cool. So that is definitely one of the marketing goals that you guys are working towards. And I know that you've made tremendous progress in the last year. So we'll talk about it in a minute. But I think, wait a second, let me stop. We jumped into some of the strategic goals already. And I'd like to pause for a second and first let our audience get to know you personally a little bit, Jillian. You're obviously now very educated about automotive, cybersecurity, and infrastructure. But I think 5 years ago, if I had met you, you wouldn't have been able to spell cybersecurity for automotive even, almost. So can you please introduce you? Tell us how you got to be head of marketing for GuardKnox, how you started your journey, what brought you to here?
Yeah, so definitely not a linear journey, not a journey that really you could have never even in my wildest dreams would I think that I would be where I am today. I grew up in the United States. I grew up in Ohio, a very traditional upbringing. My entire life, I wanted to be a doctor. I was a big athlete. I went to Tulane University in New Orleans. I was, pre-med, planning to go to medical school, but not the happiest taking organic chemistry and physics and all of that stuff. So actually was approached by a program called Teach for America and asked for me to apply. And I said, oh, great. It's a great learning opportunity. So for those of you unfamiliar with Teach for America, it's a division of AmeriCorps. And our founding thesis is one day all children will have access to an equal and equitable education. So the Nelson Mandela quote of education is the most powerful tool with which to change the world. I'm a huge believer in it. They Teach for America actually typically takes not teaching professionals. They teach new college graduates, young professionals, and they put us in special schools. Essentially, our kids have to meet a certain percentage of free and reduced lunches or live below the poverty line. So I went off to Dallas, Texas. I was a high school physics and chemistry teacher, fell in love with this education. Obviously, it was the hardest 2 years of my life, but the most rewarding. I think those 2 years have enabled me to be where I am today in my life and have enabled me to be the marketer that I am today. I came, actually Ebola came to Dallas while I was there, got really interested in very different things and got my master's degree in emergency and disaster management here in Tel Aviv. Was really enjoying it. I worked for the Israeli Red Cross, MADA. I worked with Israel Aid and went to one of my professors and said, hey, I'm looking for a job. I worked with you on something for the World Bank. Can you help me? And he said, Jillian, I've been working with you for the past year. I'm starting this company and you're going to come work for me. And I said, you're insane. Absolutely not. Will I go into business? My father's an entrepreneur. My mother's a marketer. My sister's a businesswoman. Not my thing. I did go home. I Googled, I looked at the market and I said, oh my God, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. So wow. That professor is the CEO and co-founder of GuardKnox, Moshe. Moshe Schliessel. And he has been obviously more than a boss, more than a CEO. He has been a mentor. He has been a very dear friend of mine. And he has given me an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to learn, and really, come and create something amazing at GuardKnox. So I would, I'm not going to ask you, I know you're too modest to explain to the audience what it was that Moshe saw in you, that he made this leap of faith and he thought, okay, I'm going to take this lady and to be my right hand in building this company. And I know some of the things he saw in you because I have had the privilege to work with you.
But can you maybe give us some insight on what was your intuitive, I mean, for you, it also was a leap of faith to come out of all the environment and all your plans before, and all of a sudden make this change in your trajectory by joining Moshe Schlissel on the journey on GuardKnox. What was it about this opportunity that made it so appealing for someone like yourself, who's so driven to change the world and do good in the world? What made it so appealing for you?
Yeah, so after living in Israel, getting my master's degree for a year, obviously, Israel is nicknamed the startup nation. And so this idea, I think there's something really special about the Israeli entrepreneurial mindset, and what you're able to learn, especially like you would see this in disaster scenarios. They say immediately following a disaster, you want the Israelis there. And you saw that Israel was the first country after the Haitian earthquake. Afterwards, you want the Americans for the long-term stuff. And it's kind of like a joke. And I really think that there's something truly remarkable of this way of doing business, this idea that, as Moshe loves to say, the sky is not the limit. So, the sky's not even the limit for us. And I don't have boundaries. It's always thinking outside the box. And for someone like me who is creative, who loves a good challenge, I think it just gave me I saw the opportunity to grow and to learn. And I think the biggest thing is, I spent 2 years on the other side of the classroom as a teacher and not as a student, but I learned more in that time. And we are students our entire lives. And I found this opportunity. I said, you know what, worst case scenario, I'm going to learn a lot. And I can always go back to whatever I need, but basic business skills is something you need for, everywhere in life. And that's exactly, what kind of I believed in Moshe enough to completely alter my life. And obviously in my case, it really paid off, but the biggest risk in life is never taking one. And so I took a leap of faith, and I'm blessed with a supportive family. And, 5 years later, I'm still here and still kicking.
Wow. Okay. You know what? What you just mentioned really resonated with what I'm seeing with a lot of companies. So maybe I'll point this out because I think it's interesting to note that I think the uniqueness in the Israeli tech culture, it comes a lot from this mentality that is really ingrained in the people that are coached in the Israeli army, especially in the intelligence forces and in the technology units. I see it I have 2 kids there, and I see in them the most, the thing that stands out most about their training is they come out of it thinking that there is no mission impossible. No mission is impossible. It's like something they really, that's a very strong part of the culture. So I think it's true for GuardKnox that when you started out, you set some very ambitious goals, and the mentality of no mission is impossible is what stands behind the motivation to go after these huge goals that are unthinkable for a small startup that's trying to get into this industry where for 50 years they only buy from giants, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get down to the specifics. I wanted us to focus on what happened to GuardKnox marketing led by you from, let's say, February 2020 till today, 18 months later, August 2021. So could you take us through, let's go back to February 2020, just a few days before the world has been struck by a pandemic. At the time, what was the situation in GuardKnox? What was your business situation? What were your goals? What were you thinking that you were planning to do? And then let's see how it changed and what you did afterwards to be where you are. So take us through the goals of February 2020.
Yeah, so February 2020, I mean, it feels like a lifetime ago and then it feels like yesterday, but I think everyone in the world can kind of say the same thing. February 2020, we were just coming off the heels of the most successful CES, the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, that we have ever had. It was just amazing. We had all of these meetings. We got great press. We were named one of the top, innovations from the Wall Street Journal. And we really were just kicking off this whole kind of in the middle of this repositioning. We then had a customer day at one of the leading German OEMs, manufacturers. That was awesome. We really demonstrated a whole new electronic architecture for the vehicle. I had been in Japan. I had been in the United States. We were in the middle of this repositioning of the cyber tech tier, rebranding, and things were going great. We had customer days at customer locations throughout the world, scheduled like one every 6 weeks for the rest of the year. I'm like, this is our marketing strategy. We're going to be there. We're going to do these really intimate, awesome events, and we had just won the Frost & Sullivan Award. And I was actually supposed to take off on a flight to London. And I had gotten off of the phone with a customer in China. And I said, tell it to me like a friend, what's going on? And I ended up, this has never happened to me before. I freaked out at the office. I was like, we can't go to London for this award ceremony. And so, COVID hit. COVID was already here, but we realized the gravity of the situation and we're all stuck at home. Israel, obviously had some pretty strict lockdown measures. And we had been in the middle of opening and offices, subsidiaries in China and everything that kind of went on pause. And I said, what are we going to do? How are we going to adjust? We have this huge momentum. We have to continue this momentum and we have to completely pivot. And at the same time, we're rebranding and we're repositioning ourselves in the market. So word to the wise, I do not recommend repositioning or rebranding a company while you're in lockdown in the middle of a pandemic. Okay. But Mission Impossible, we did it and it was great. We have some great partners, obviously, that really helped us with that. So we said, okay, totally different strategy. And we really went towards obviously account-based marketing, and not account-based marketing as this buzzword it kind of became. Everyone says, yeah, we do account-based marketing, but what does account-based marketing mean for GuardKnox? And really diving into it and building this super hyper segmented kind of marketing strategy, working really, really closely with our BD. And, fast forward to today, we have grown just as a company, a tremendous amount. We've over doubled in size just in personnel in the past year. We've moved offices because we outgrew our old office and we're outgrowing this one, and signing deals with customers and clients and partners. And I mean, I hate to say it, but in certain ways, I think had we not had an event which really forced us to stop and take a bigger look at our marketing strategy. It's so easy as a marketer to say, this is how people do it. This is how it's always been done. This is what we need to do. This is work for us. We need to go down just this path. And it forced us to really take a step back and reevaluate. And that's, I think, a huge reason we are where we are today.
So let me point out a few specific areas. Let's first touch on the targeted audiences that you're selling to. GuardKnox, obviously, because you sell, infrastructure technology. We're talking about really, really large deals, like huge deals that traditionally, let's not get into specifics of deals, but these type of deals produce multi-million-dollar deals at the minimum, and they take a long time to sell because they go through lots of stages of proof of concept and then all kinds of production trials, and then until they get into final production. That's a very, very huge process. Now, for these deals, could you explain a little bit who are your targeted audiences that you need to market to. You've mentioned that you were in February 2020, had planned a series of meetings with a lot of OEMs. And I'm guessing you would be meeting there. Tell us what kind of audience you were going to meet face to face. And then let's see how we dealt with that digitally.
Yes. So I mentioned OEMs, automotive manufacturers, but tier one suppliers are honestly our main customer. But the OEM who writes the spec and works with these big tier ones will bring in GuardKnox to the conversation and things like this. They're big influencers.
Wait. So let me explain this, because a lot of companies, B2B companies, have this kind of structure where there is one supplier, one company, one vendor who specifies the equipment or the solutions, and then another supplier. In the case of automotive, those are referred to as tier ones. Those are the ones usually in their ecosystem supplying these technologies. So you guys actually need to market to both of these types of companies. On one hand, to the OEMs, who are the big vehicle brands, to them market your philosophy and your technology, and to the tier ones, you actually need to sell your products, right? So it's a double sided audience.
Exactly. So, we're working with both. We work with our customer at the end of the day is a highly technical engineer, system engineer, in charge of, they might be in charge of the electronic architecture of the vehicle, the software development, very technical people. And the funny thing is these people are not necessarily on LinkedIn. If you're security guys, your online persona just looks very different than a marketer's online persona. So how do you capture these people was a huge challenge as well.
So I'm sure you're not gonna want to give away all the secrets of how you actually managed to do that very successfully, but let's share a few of the tactics that we did to really get in front of these people, because I can generalize and say, not only for GuardKnox, for all of our customers who are targeting very high level engineers, like very highly educated, professional, experienced engineers. These guys are very hard to be in front of in your normal digital strategies. I mean, just, if you go on LinkedIn and you do a ads campaign on LinkedIn, these guys are not necessarily going to be seeing them, because your typical system engineer goes on LinkedIn when they need to go get a job, or when they need to hire someone, or very occasionally they want to they're getting some kind of reach out from a colleague that they want to relate to, so they scroll through their feed, but they're not like business people who look daily on LinkedIn. So the way we get in front of these people is through their network, right? So actually the way to do it effectively is make sure that the people who circle them, who interact with them, the people who would message them on LinkedIn and they would look at their message because they know them personally, those are the people who we want to get in front of digitally and let them draw the attention of that highly important engineer, right? So could you share with us some of the things you did in order to be successful in that?
Of course. So obviously, as you mentioned, LinkedIn campaigns are huge and really beneficial, because it's not just getting someone just to download a piece of content and you get that lead. It's them even being in a meeting and someone saying, hey, did you hear about GuardKnox? What are they doing with this? Everyone around them. So, obviously our target audience, and you build that on LinkedIn, and that's pretty, it's a great tool. It's pretty straightforward. Even going to Google, we did start doing Google ads too. And that's, you just see it, and it's just basic human psychology, right? When you see it, you're going to start remembering the name, and people are going to ask about it, or it comes up in conversation. You might not see the fruit of your labor immediately. So there's one aspect. Now, the other aspect sometimes can be a little bit more challenging. And it's really where you need to extremely humble yourself, right? Because we like to say we have all the answers, we know what we're doing. And so what we actually did is we had written this awesome zonal white paper and really talking about the next generation of electronic architecture, thought leadership piece. And before it was published, we reached out to a few of our industry contacts and we said, not necessarily our customers, just our contacts. And we said, because of who you are and what you do, we need some help. Would you mind catching a call with us for 20 minutes and giving us just some feedback? And people love to give feedback. People love to feel important. And you really, so we were able to get all these extra calls with people. We sent them a draft, which they also circulated internally. So yeah, I missed out on capturing those leads from downloading the published white paper. But what I gained is their input, because their input's awesome. We did need their input. Also, what were their questions? What can I talk about? And maybe a follow-up piece. What can I do to make something clearer? Or maybe like, wow, they're calling it this, we call it this. When I market to them, I'm going to actually have a version of the white paper that's going to talk like this, that anyone from this organization will see, but other organizations will see a more generalized one. And we were really able to do that. And then they circulated it internally. So I didn't capture the lead necessarily, but they sent that white paper and said, hey, look, I helped them out on this. Did you see this? And even though it didn't maybe come in through a traditional marketing channel, we still got the lead and they still reached out to us. And I think that was a huge part of the strategy. That was a little outside the box. We also did webinars. I think, I'm not a big fan of virtual events, I have to say, but I think super curated webinars are awesome because you also record them. So they might not be able to be there, but they can get the recording afterwards. So we did it with partners. We have some great partners. We have NXP and we have Green Hills, and we did a number of activities with them. That was awesome. And we really mutually helped each other. And I just think that, our target audience, they're not the, I hate to say it like this, but they're not, they're a little bit more traditional. So also people, you have to recognize that I want to push the envelope. I want to do all these cool, sleek, different things, but sometimes that's not going to resonate with them. They're going to look at things a very different way. So how can I tailor my material to make it look the way that they're comfortable, this format, this super engineering focused? And then I can do the, for lack of a better term, sexier, cooler things for a different audience. And you just have to know your audience.
Wow. So you've touched on so many really valuable points. Let me pull out one thing that I find that you guys did spectacularly well, and I think it's going to be really useful for others. And that is when you mentioned the zonal white paper. Now, from my perspective, that was part of a bigger strategy, and that was to gain organic traffic of people that are from the companies that you're not talking to yet. Now, when I am saying gain organic traffic, I mean that when, most companies, when they put together an SEO strategy, what they do is they look for terms that have volume, that people are searching for, all kinds of topics. And in your case, it would be all kinds of topics around the architecture for vehicles, for automotive, technologies for automotive, blah, blah, blah. All, we had those mapped 18 months ago, all these terms that get traffic. And of course, all the new technologies that GuardKnox are developing, they're so new that those are terms that don't have traffic. So a classical SEO strategy that most companies use would not identify any of these terms as in their strategy. Now, what you guys did really, really well was you made some very educated guesses on what would be terms that the market are likely to adapt within a year or two. And one of those terms was the zonal EE architecture, and some other terms that maybe I'm not going to give away now because we're still working on, but this term was, we coined the term, and then we educated the leaders of the market to use this term. And then within 18 months, we can say that we've seen huge growth of traffic around the term. And for sure, no one else stands a chance to compete with GuardKnox, ranking number 1, 2, and 3 for the terms related to zonal architecture. And the whole world talks zonal architecture now. So this was a really, it was a tactic that you guys used, and that I think that a lot of companies can learn from, that if you give enough attention to identify those terms in advance, you can really get ahead with those terms, as their traffic picks up.
Yeah. And I mean, it's kind of a hard thing to do, I think, sometimes, because it's uncomfortable. It's uncharted territory. And you just got to trust your gut, and you got to be okay to maybe fail a little bit, right? Because we never got anywhere without failing. So we've made some of those decisions that have not panned out for us. And you know what? That's okay, because we did make a great decision. And had we not been comfortable doing that, we would have never done it, and we would never be where we are today.
Right. And so, yes, to be fair, we would say we tried a few terms, and not all of them picked up as widely as some did, but you got to try things, as you said. And another thing you pointed out, and I want to generalize the conclusion from it, is that you talked about how different companies that you are working with use different terminology for the same technology, right? Mm-hmm. And so for sure, part of this hypersegmentation that you use included customizing content per account to use the specific terms of that account uses. How did you make sure that these guys are seeing that variation of the content and not another variation?
Of course. So, through a lot of our tools, you're able to see what URL they're coming from, like, what email address, what domain they're coming from. In certain cases, you just kind of take a chance and you're saying, okay, they're coming from this geographic region. So we have some of very specific blogs, for instance, in French to really, appeal to that market, or in German. And so we really leaned on our tools. We leaned on our experts and said, let's make sure if you're coming in with X, Y, and Z domain names, this is what you're seeing.
Right. So we call that, by the way, in the HubSpot language, we call that smart fields. So we implemented smart fields in the website so that the specific audiences would see specific language.
Exactly. So that's what we did. And
so can you share with us a little bit? Okay, so 18 months into this, what are some of the results that you can share with us?
So actually, we're very honored. We were just named Wired's top 100 startups in Europe and top 10 in Israel, which, we're very honored, and it's huge for us. We're very proud of that. We have signed, so a number of contracts. Obviously, the nature of this industry, we can't share them, but we've signed 5 with top tier manufacturers and tier ones. And we're just in a really advanced stages of conversations for these very large projects with, some of these just global giants. From a fundraising perspective, things are, going great. Please, you guys will all hear something, very soon. And I, from a partnership perspective, we formed a 3-way partnership with NXP and Green Hills. We have our partnership with Xilinx, which is their semiconductor company, onboarding a number of different customers, partners in that space as well. We're part of Foxconn's MIH Alliance. They're building a platform, an EV platform for all these huge EV automakers. And we were one of the, first members of this alliance. So things have just been it's funny, I used to be on an airplane 24/7. I never was home. I traveled nonstop. We used to joke that our where do you live? And we used to joke and we would tell them our last airplane seat. And like, I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself. Like, I've never been at home this many consecutive days in my life.
So is your life better?
In certain ways, yes. In other ways, I think for my like relationship, I got engaged during this time. So obviously I spent enough time with my partner to for us to say, oh, we really enjoy life together. Let's continue this.
Wow, that's a biggie.
Yeah, it was, I used to travel so much. He's like, I feel like I live alone. So that was big for us. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so I want you to just describe for us maybe a little bit your marketing team, because obviously I'm sure all of these amazing results don't come in with a one person team show, right?
Mm-hmm.
So could you share with us a little bit how you built the marketing team and how you structure all these operations that you're running?
Of course. So something pretty strategic for me when we were building the team was I really wanted native English speakers. I wanted Olim. So for those outside of Israel, it's a term we use to describe a new immigrant to Israel, someone who was born and raised, somewhere else. So it is built of Olim for a few strategic reasons. One, it takes a very special type of person to leave their home country and everything they've ever known, and to pick up and move to a different country. And there's a type
not just any country, a difficult country.
Yes, Israel is an amazing country, but it is definitely not the easiest country to live in. And it takes a certain type of resilience and self-confidence to do so. And I can't teach anyone how to be resilient. I can't teach someone to believe in themselves. And when the going get tough, the tough get tougher. And, there's so many instances that you can talk about as a new immigrant to any country, but those are qualities I really want. As we talked about, we're working in a blue ocean, we're pushing the envelope. I want people not afraid to fail. When they hear no, they don't go through the door, they go through the window. And that was huge. Besides, just the fact that a native English speaker, from a marketing perspective, our clients are not here in Israel. The automotive industry is not in Israel. Automotive technology, automotive startups, it's crazy how amazing Israel is doing, but they're not here. So our marketing is not done in Hebrew. And I need someone who understands that it's the localization that you will need, that understands also some of the people skills are very different to do business. And Israeli business mantras are awesome and they work really well in certain situations, and American or other communities work great in other situations. So how do you marry the two? And that was really big. And also from a personal point of view, I'm a pretty competitive athlete, and we've recruited pretty competitive athletes just because, Israelis have the army that they go towards. And as you mentioned previously, it teaches you a lot. But sports, especially for me, have taught me, this mentality of what does it mean to be in a team? How do you fail? So much you find people that in this generation who might not have ever really failed in their life, and they don't know how to deal with that.
And how to get up, pick themselves up right after a failure and still excel.
Exactly. And how to, I could go with so many different scenarios here. So I think that was really important to me too, when building this team. And we've also, outside of just the GuardKnox employees, we have a team, we work with Penguin Strategies, our marketing agency, and obviously we think of Penguin as just an extension of the GuardKnox team. I trust Penguin with everything. I trust y'all with, so I think we also have someone who will tell me when I'm wrong or push me or push my thoughts. I think that's so important. We have some amazing PR companies too working with us. And, they're all part of our marketing team. When I think of my marketing team, I don't just think of GuardKnox employees.
I want to add, first of all, thank you, Jillian, for your kind words. I want to say that it is very, very, feeling is very mutual. And I want to say from the angle of an agency that it's really the relationship with the clients is so much more successful when there is a common understanding that the relationship needs to work for both sides equally successfully. And I feel like you have managed to really know how to, on one hand, be very demanding. You're a demanding client, I'll say the truth. On the other hand, also very respectful of our limitations or interests and issues. And because of the mutual respect, which is very rare among Israeli startups, so I'd like to thank you for it. So because of this mutual respect, I think the relationship has been really successful for both of our companies, and I'm so honored to be part of this. But let's leave the rest of it outside of the public eye, because I'm starting to get embarrassed. So you know what, Jillian, just to close this episode, I wanted to ask you something that I often ask my guests to close with. If you were able to give yourself 5 years ago, your Jillian of 5 years ago, as she was the very starting marketer, some advice based on what you know today, what would be that advice?
It's a great question. I always look back at that time, and it is so easy as a new marketer at such a new startup to look around you and to say, this company is doing this and this company is doing this. And I always say, as a marketer, one of the hardest challenges is everyone thinks they understand marketing. Everyone in the company. So you get sent things 24/7. We should do this and we should do this. And I say, like, we need to stop being so reactive, right? We're not competing against this company or this company. We're competing against ourselves. So pick a few things to really focus on and do those things right. The other things will come. But if you spread yourself too thin and you're trying to constantly do this and you don't have a clear strategy and you don't have a foundation of what you do well, you will never be able to scale. And at the beginning, I used to get so overwhelmed and so stressed. I have to do this and I have to do this. And well, this company's doing this, so we should be doing this. And, that's not how things work. Pick a few things, do them well, and then grow.
Wow, that is so true. And I think you've hit the nail on the head by identifying something that's really a big hurdle for a lot of marketers that I meet, that they try to capture everything at once, and they're very reactive because of that, rather than being more strategically planned ahead in terms of what are the elements they need to achieve. Because with all, despite the fact that in digital marketing, you have all these opportunities that come in surprisingly from all kinds of unexpected places that found your website, it's, at the end of the day, it's not magic. It's if you build it methodically, layer by layer, properly, all this magic happens. So it's magic that happens if you're very methodical and planned. And for building that, you really can't be reactive, because then you can't build the infrastructure properly. And I think what GuardKnox has done very, very impressively is built layer by layer a very strong infrastructure for digital marketing, that now you're seeing the results of it every day, but it wouldn't have happened if you weren't managing things very strategically. So I really admire the way you managed to do that from the start. And it's been a wonderful journey to go this pathway with you until now. And I hope we're going to be doing lots of wonderful, bigger things in the future. I'm sure you guys will. And thank you so much for your time, Jillian.
Thank you.
And I'll see you soon.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the B2B Startup Growth Podcast, bringing you the latest wisdom on marketing, sales, growth hacking, and life as a startup leader. I'm your host, Shoham Eckhaus, and if there's a particular topic that you'd like me to cover soon, please reach out to me on b2bstartupgrowth.com and let me know.